Researcher notes. I am a retired woman who loves to walk in the fresh air. Often, I choose to feed a flock of ducks, which live in the picturesque area of Rybacki, where the spacious Neva Ridge attracts the eye with its wide panorama of water and sky. One day, having captured the spirit of adventure, I went there by car, previously visiting the nearest supermarket to buy my favorite delicacy, feathered, freshly baked bread. Going to the shopping center, I bought 2 large loaves of bread and carefully put them in a transparent plastic bag on the next passenger seat. Laughing with myself, I thought how nice it is to see the happy eating of ducks and geese. Having started the engine, I was about to continue my journey, but soon a curious situation arose. Distracted for a while by looking in the rearview mirror, I noticed that one of them had mysteriously evaporated from the seat. The first thought, probably the attention was scattered, and the bread remained lying on the cash table of the supermarket. Resolutely turned back, forgetting everything except a ridiculous accident. And on the way I scream, "Violation of physical laws! Disappeared cake!" When I returned to the store, barely containing my emotions, I threw a furious accusation of theft at the cashier. Why have I been deprived of a whole bagel? The cashier girl offended, insisting that the 2 candies were indeed handed over to the buyer personally. By her, no crime was committed. Looking at my own actions through the prism of sanity, I came to the conclusion that unknown forces in the world are trying to play a joke on me, making me doubt my own memory and reason. The outcome of the situation was very unusual. When I went back to my car, I found the other half of a bagel lying neatly under the wheels of another vehicle near the entrance to the store. The package was torn, and the bread itself slightly damaged, which explained its sudden disappearance from the chair. Apparently, my loud complaint to the violators of space laws had an effect, and the forces ordered to return the stolen property. However, fate has brought another surprise. Already getting into the car, heading home, suddenly noticed the road pavement near the parking space. There lay the remaining pieces of bread, apparently torn from the bag earlier and falling out unnoticed by the eye of the observer. Carefully collecting the leftovers, she returned to the store, wishing to dispel the suspicions of the cashier, telling her the good news. The whole loaf was found intact and unharmed. On my way home, I thought about the fun of it. From this case, I have learned an important lesson. If something valuable, undoubtedly existing in your consciousness, suddenly disappears, boldly accuse the higher forces of neglecting the laws of Earth's physics. Your insistence on restoring justice will surely bear fruit, perhaps a little later than you originally would have liked. Thus, the story ended up fun and informative. Everything found confirmed my guess. Invisible forces have a sense of humor, and it is important to be able to pay attention in time. Let me tell you a rather interesting story that happened to me in the late 90s of the last century. Then I worked as a worker in a small factory, processing parts on a lathe machine. It was a normal working day. Towards evening, the management asked to stay longer than usual to finish an urgent order. There was nothing out of the ordinary in this schedule, but I remembered that night for a long time. While manufacturing the next part, I finished processing and got out of the spindle's special purpose part, so-called Morse cone with center. This thing was a massive piece of metal that weighed about 10 kilograms, roughly the size of a standard 2-liter plastic bottle. Usually, I carefully put this item on a special shelf next to the machine, a comfortable wooden box measuring about 40 by 60 centimeters. So, having finished with the details, I put Morse code on my usual storage location and went away for literally a minute. Came back, looked carefully at the shelf, no details. The shelf is absolutely empty, as if nothing heavy and large was there at all. Checked twice, viewed the space visually, touched the surface of the shelf with a palm, looked down, checked the sides. The details really were nowhere. I was seized by a feeling of slight perplexity, but no surprise for some reason. Instead, there was a sense of calm, as if telling me, the case requires a short break. So I did the simple thing. I put down the machine, took out the tool head, and went quietly to sharpen the cutters with which I was processing the metal. Finished the grinding process and returned to the workstation. Approaching the machine, I look up at the shelf. There lies peacefully that very detail, cone of Morse. This is a mystery that happened to me many years ago. It is important to note that I was in the room of the workshop, one entrance door blocked in advance, so that no one accidentally interfere with the work. So there was simply no possibility of moving or stealing the part from outside. This is how it is sometimes. The details disappear and appear on their own, showing us that some events remain unexplained even after many. Yes, such stories happen all the time. In my parents' apartment, mystical disappearances of things occurred regularly, it seemed. Nothing special, just an ordinary small apartment of only 40 square meters, but its space seemed to obey some special laws of physics. Although the living space was modest and compact, it had a mysterious ability to absorb things and then return them again. I remember my parents were real fanatics of order and cleanliness, and each item had its strictly defined place. However, even with such a pedantic approach, it was impossible to predict the fate of objects left in the house. You would say, put a textbook on a completely clean and empty table, get distracted for just a minute, and lo and behold, the table was empty again, and the book had vanished without a trace. And so the quest began. For half a day, the three of us, along with my parents, searched the entire apartment from top to bottom, checking every nook and cranny in an attempt to locate the missing item. Then, exhausted and disappointed, we would head home and continue the search with the entire family. We had to spend the whole day at home, giving up all tasks and plans for the sake of saving one unfortunate lost thing. And then, closer to evening, on a perfectly clean and empty table, the sought-after item would suddenly appear. That very unfortunate textbook lay there calmly, as if it hadn't moved at all. The same story repeated almost daily with various items. A comb, kitchen utensils like a frying pan, tools such as screwdrivers. The list could go on endlessly. We have become so accustomed to such wonders that we no longer are amazed by similar occurrences. The only solution to the problem was to turn to the traditional helper, the domovoi. After a ritual appeal asking to return the lost item, it would immediately be found in the most conspicuous place in the apartment, and sometimes several family members who had previously searched in vain would see it at the same time. This continued for many years of our cohabitation in that small apartment, occasionally making us wonder if there really are boundaries of space and laws of the universe. Once, a funny situation happened to me involving inexplicable phenomena in my own refrigerator. One evening, my husband and I went to the nearest supermarket, stocked up on groceries, and among other things, we bought a dozen eggs. When we got home, we decided to save our energy and left the box of eggs in its packaging, carefully placing it on the second shelf of the refrigerator. Putting off making pancakes until the morning, we didn't think much about the fate of the groceries we had bought. The morning started quite unexpectedly. As I was about to prepare breakfast and take out some pastries, I opened the fridge door, reached for the second shelf where I had left a box of eggs the day before, and realized that the shelf was empty. I inspected the entire inside of the fridge, carefully looked over each shelf and container, peered into the freezer. There was no sign of the coveted egg packaging to be found. To be completely sure, I opened the fridge door again, took a deep breath, and looked closely. The shelf was exactly the same as a second ago, completely empty. To make sure, I gently ran my palm across the surface of the shelf. My hands felt the coldness of the glass. The surface was smooth and even. There was no packaging with the eggs in sight. Intrigued by what had happened, I decided to discuss the situation with my husband, approached him, and asked if he had accidentally moved the eggs to another place. My husband responded with confusion, assuring me that he hadn't touched them and was generally sure that the box was still exactly where I left it, on the second shelf. I returned to the kitchen, stood in front of the refrigerator, mentally preparing to see yet another failed search, slowly reached for the door handle, and suddenly opened it. Before my eyes appeared a scene that caused complete astonishment. The cardboard packaging with precious fresh eggs, neatly standing on the usual second shelf, looked as if it had been there all along. I stood for a while, observing the packaging, amazed by the phenomenon I had witnessed. Is it really possible for objects to migrate between spaces on their own? Later, recalling this incident, I came to the conclusion that my life is full of various unusual moments, especially related to our home, where a variety of wonders and surprises periodically occur, making me doubt the reality of my perception of the surrounding world. We were resting in Crimea at that time, enjoying the sea breeze and the tranquility of a cozy seaside cafe. It was already getting dark, around 5 in the evening. We were sitting there, chatting about everything and relaxing. Suddenly, an absolutely incredible bird flew by. It was of a remarkably beautiful turquoise color with a hint of blue, like a jewel in flight, slightly larger than an ordinary pigeon, with a huge luxurious tail resembling a peacock's fan. Its feathers sparkled with all the colors of the rainbow, as if nature itself had decided to show us a miracle. I was literally washed over by a wave of excitement. So striking was this picture in my imagination. For about 2 or 3 minutes, I froze, watching the bird, enchanted by its beauty. It seemed to me that those around me were also frozen, spellbound by the spectacle. There was a feeling that everything around had quieted, the world had hushed, just to not scare away this magical beauty. Finally, I turned to my friends and exclaimed enthusiastically, "Just look at what an amazing bird!" They looked at me in confusion and asked, "Where?" And I pointed my hand upwards and repeated, "There, do you see? It's flying right in front of you." My friends looked where I was pointing, but didn't notice anything special. The bird continued to soar high above us, brightly shimmering against the sky with its amazing colors and unusually beautiful tail. But no one but me has seen her for some reason. Perhaps some people are simply not given such wonders. Everyone lives in their own little world of perception. Some see the beauty of nature, while others pass by it, absorbed in the everyday. That's why my friends decided that the sun must have hit me in the head. After all, we were sitting in the shade, and there seemed to be no objective reasons for such a mirage. But I know for sure that I saw exactly such a beautiful, bright, and unique bird. Maybe at that moment in my life, I was able to touch something special, unique, and incredibly beautiful. Maybe you will also be lucky enough to encounter something similar in your own story of travel and discoveries of the world one day.